In the last section, we started putting together our weather list container. We put our table together and we hooked it up to our Redux state along with the weather state right here. So we now have access to this.props.weather inside of weather list. To build our list of rows now, remember one row represents one city, we're going to need to build a list of rows. And we're going to do that a little bit differently than how we built our list in the past. Before we start that though, I want to make sure that it's really, really clear exactly what the structure of our API data is. So I'm going to pull my browser back open here, and I'm going to go back over to the API response that I still have open here. So we don't really care about the city right now. What I really care about talking about is our list. So our this.props.weather value inside of our container that we just defined contains an array of objects just like this right here. Each one has a city property, a COD, whatever that is, COD, oh yeah, it's a 200, it's got to be a response status code, whatever. It's got a city and it's got a list, and then the list is an array of individual forecast snapshots. So just to make sure it's really clear exactly how we're going to be working with this data, let's take a look at another mockup. So here is a diagram of our Redux state, and I'll increase the zoom level in a second here. I just want to give you an overall. This is our Redux state. It contains a single property weather, which is an array. So now I'm going to zoom in. So we got the single property weather that has an array, and within that array is a bunch of objects. Each object has a city and a list. To build the rows of our table, all we need to do is map over this.props.weather. When we map over that array, we'll get one city per row. All right? So let's go ahead and give this a shot. And go back over to my code editor, and we are going to define inside of our table body, we're going to do our curly braces because we're going to make access to a JavaScript variable, and we'll say this.props.weather. Remember, this is now the array of objects. We'll map over it, and for each element in that array, call the function this.renderWeather. Then we're going to define that function, render weather. So since we're mapping over this array, the this.props.weather, the argument in here, the first argument for every call, is going to be a particular city of data, or a particular object that contains a city's data. So we'll call that argument city data. So this argument right here would be identical to saying like basically this guy right here, just this little bit, one city and then a list of all the forecast snapshots. So just to confirm that we're doing this correctly, let's return from here a tr, and inside of it we'll do a td, city data, and we want to print the name out. So to get access to the name of the city, we'll do city.name. And just in case there's a little mystery on why I'm doing city.name here, let's go back to the API response. You can see that for a given city, here's the response, here's what we're working with. We've got city.name. So that's where that's coming from, city.name. Okay, so let's give this a shot. I'm going to save this file, and then we will refresh the page. And let's do a search for San Francisco. And cool, so we got San Francisco successfully popping up. Now let's add in Reno. Or how about Tampa and Phoenix? Cool, this is exactly what we want. We've got one row in our table for each city, and the first column is the name of the city. You'll notice that we do have an error here. Again, it's an array about how we're rendering a list, and whenever we have a list, we need to provide a unique key property. Let's fix that really quick. So remember the rule behind adding a key in a React list. We add it to the top level element in the list, and it just has to be some unique piece of data. So we can make this also be the city name because that is a unique string. So we could do citydata.city.name. Or better yet, just to make our code a little bit more dry, don't repeat yourself, we can say const name citydata.city.name. And then for both the key and the TD, we can just make a reference to name. Let's give it another shot. Do Dallas and Tampa, Baltimore, Boston. Cool, looking good. No more error over here anymore. Let's go ahead and continue in the next section.